Hello students, welcome back to digital fluency class. So yesterday we have stopped in benefits of effective communication. So we have seen what are the different uh, areas, issues with communication and how it benefits when you have an effective communication in the last class. So today, continuing it, we'll move on to unit 2, wherein we'll see how we can practice effective communication in our daily lives, or maybe where we work, or in our colleges or in our work locations. So if you closely see this, practicing effective communication. So see, there are certain areas like what we want to tell and how we should tell that, and some sample communication is given, and what is the ideal reaction from the receiver. So the light blue shade, in this diagram is what it is. Light green is how to do it. Yellowish is sample communication, and kind of a pink or peach color is an ideal reaction from the receiver. So let's see, while we share any information, okay, telling one way. So what we have to do is we are sharing some information to the other person. So how we can do it? Through presentations, email, video, or internet posting, or whatever. So these are the various options available. ನೀವು ಇನ್ನೊಬ್ಬರಿಗೆ ಇನ್ಫಾರ್ಮೇಷನ್ ಶೇರ್ ಮಾಡಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ ಈ ರೀತಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ಮಾಡ್ಕೋಬೋದು. ಹೌ ಟು ಟೆಲ್ ಇಟ್? ಹಿಯರ್ ಈಸ್ ವಾಟ್ಸ್ ವಿ ಆರ್ ಪ್ಲ್ಯಾನಿಂಗ್. ನಾವು ನೋಡಿ, ಯಾವುದೇ ಒಂದು ವಿಷಯನ ಹೇಳಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ ನಾವು ಈ ರೀತಿ ಹೇಳ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೀನಿ ನಾವು ಹೇಳಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ, ಸೊ ದ ರಿಯಾಕ್ಷನ್, ಥ್ಯಾಂಕ್ ಯು ಫಾರ್ ಟೆಲಿಂಗ್ ಮೀ ದಿಸ್, ಸೊ ದಟ್ ವಿಲ್ ಬಿ ಎನ್ ಐಡಿಯಲ್ ರಿಯಾಕ್ಷನ್. So one simple way or secret of having effective communication is to have that positive mentality, and giving respect while we communicate to the receiver of the communication. So so that is the first stage, sharing of information. Second stage is building understanding. Okay, so what we have to do is a dialogue. So what first person ಏನು ಹೇಳಿದಾನೆ ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಏನು ರಿಪ್ಲೈ ಬೇಕು, ಅಥವಾ ಡಯಲಾಗ್ ಟೂ ವೇ ಕಮ್ಯುನಿಕೇಷನ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. ಯಾವ ರೀತಿ ಆಗ್ಬೋದು? ಸ್ಮಾಲ್ ಗ್ರೂಪ್ ಮೀಟಿಂಗ್ಸ್, ಬ್ರೇಕ್ಔಟ್ಸ್ ಟು ಡೆವಲಪ್ ಕ್ವೆಶನ್ಸ್, ಫೆಸಿಲಿಟೇಟೆಡ್ ಕ್ಯೂ ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ಎ, ಅಂದರೆ ಕ್ವೆಶನ್ ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ಆನ್ಸರ್ಸ್, ಆ ರೀತಿ. ಸೊ ಒಂದು ಗ್ರೂಪ್ ಥರ ಮೀಟಿಂಗಲ್ಲಿ ಮಾತಾಡ್ಕೋಬೋದು. ಇನ್ ರೆಸ್ಪಾನ್ಸ್ ಟು ಯುವರ್ ಕ್ವೆಶನ್ಸ್, ಲೆಟ್ ಮೀ ಶೇರ್ ದ ರೇಷನಲ್ ಫಾರ್ ಚೇಂಜ್. ಸೊ ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಯಾವ ರೀತಿ ರಿಪ್ಲೈ ಮಾಡ್ಕೋಬೋದು? ಈಗ ಫಸ್ಟ್ ನಾವು ಕೇಳಿದ ಕ್ವೆಶನಿಗೆ ಈ ರೀತಿ ಯು ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ಎಫೆಕ್ಟಿವ್ಲಿ ಸೇ ದಟ್ ಇನ್ ರೆಸ್ಪಾನ್ಸ್ ಟು ಯುವರ್ ಕ್ವೆಶನ್ಸ್ ಲೆಟ್ ಮಿ ಶೇರ್ ದಿ ರ್ಯಾಷನಲ್ ಫಾರ್ ಚೇಂಜ್. ಸೊ ಅದನ್ನು ಕೇಳಿದ ಮತ್ತು ಫಸ್ಟ್ ಪರ್ಸನ್ ಯಾವ ರೀತಿ ಪಾಸಿಬ್ಲಿ ರಿಪ್ಲೈ ಮಾಡ್ಕೋಬೋದು? ಹ್ಯಾವಿಂಗ್ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪ್ಲೋರ್ಡ್ ಮೈ ಕನ್ಸರ್ನ್ಸ್, ಐ ನೌ ಅಂಡರ್ಸ್ಟ್ಯಾಂಡ್ ದ ಫೋಕಸ್ ಆಫ್ ದಿ ಚೇಂಜ್ ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ವೈ ಇಟ್ ಈಸ್ ನೀಡೆಡ್. ಸೊ ಅದನ್ನು ಆಕ್ಸೆಪ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡುವಂತಹ ಒಂದು ಮೆಂಟ್ಯಾಲಿಟಿ. ಸೊ ದಟ್ ಈಸ್ ವಾಟ್ ಈಸ್ ಶೋನ್. ಸೊ ಇನ್ ಮೋಸ್ಟ್ ಆಫ್ ದ ಸಿಚುವೇಶನ್ಸ್, ವೆನ್ ವಿ ಅಂಡರ್ಸ್ಟ್ಯಾಂಡ್ ದ್ಯಾಟ್ ದಿ ಅದರ್ ಪರ್ಸನ್ is telling the truth, then we need to accept it. So that is, I know it's very difficult part, but even then, if we understand that the other person is saying, if that is truth, means we need to accept it. So that is very essential in effective communication. Third thing is identifying implication. So exploring and analyzing the impact of the change. So these are the example sentences. You can just go through all these. There are 5 sets. So this is just to practice effective communication. So moving on in the same thing, this is very important part in with respect to the examination. There are 7 C's of communication. So in any communication when we make, these 7 C's must be there, it must be present in your communication. So first C is clear. So whatever you are trying to communicate, that should be clear. So whichever language you might be using, verbal, non-verbal, written, whatever it is, it should be clear. There should not be any scope for doubt, ಅಥವಾ ಅದು ಒಂಥರ ಡಬಲ್ ಮೀನಿಂಗ್ ಕೊಡೋ ಥರ ಇರಬಾರ್ದು, ಅಥವಾ ಮಿಸ್ಅಂಡರ್ಸ್ಟ್ಯಾಂಡಿಂಗ್ ಆಗೋ ರೀತಿ ಇರಬಾರ್ದು. ಇಟ್ ಶುಡ್ ಬಿ ಕ್ಲಿಯರ್. ಸೊ ಫಸ್ಟ್ ಒನ್ ಇಸ್ ಕ್ಲಿಯರ್, ದೆನ್ ಕರೆಕ್ಟ್. So always and always, whenever we share an information or we talk about something to the other person, it should be correct information. So it is our responsibility that we, before talking or before sharing some information, especially now you can see that in WhatsApp we get forwards forward messages. But what we do is, if we found it interesting or maybe very emotional, whatever, so without cross checking whether the information is correct or not, we forward it. That is the biggest mistake we are doing. That is the reason why many people are taking advantage of this. Okay, if something is strange or something is not very usual, ಅಂತಹ ಒಂದು ಮೆಸೇಜ್ ಬರುತ್ತೆ ನಿಮ್ಮ ವಾಟ್ಸಪ್ ಗ್ರೂಪಲ್ಲಿ ಹೀಗಾಯಿತು ಅಂತೇಳಿ, ನೀವು ಏನು ಹಿಂದೆ ಮುಂದೆ ನೋಡೋದು ಅದನ್ನು ಫಾರ್ವರ್ಡ್ ಮಾಡಿಬಿಡ್ತೀರಾ, ಮೇ ಬಿ ಇನ್ ಮೋಸ್ಟ್ ಆಫ್ ದಿ ಗ್ರೂಪ್ಸ್. ಸೊ ಇಟ್ ವಿಲ್ ರೀಚ್, ಇಟ್ ವಿಲ್ ಮಲ್ಟಿಪ್ಲೈ, ಇಟ್ ವಿಲ್ ರೀಚ್ hundreds, thousands of people. So because nobody bothers about whether it's correct or not. So always and always, at least from today onwards, see that the informations you share are correct. ಓಕೆ, ದೆನ್ ಕೋಹರೆಂಟ್ ಅಂದರೆ ಇಟ್ ಶುಡ್ ಬಿ ಲಾಜಿಕಲ್ ಅಂತಾರೆ. ನೀವು ಮಾತಾಡೋ ರೀತಿ ಇರ್ಬೋದು ಅಥವಾ ಪ್ರೆಸೆಂಟೇಷನ್ ಮಾಡುವಂಥ ರೀತಿ ಇರ್ಬೋದು, ದೇರ್ ಶುಡ್ ಬಿ ಎ ಲಾಜಿಕಲ್ ಫ್ಲೋ. ಅದು ಇದಾದಮೇಲೆ ಇದು ಬರಬೇಕು. ಸೊ ಒಂದು ರೀತಿ ಫ್ಲೋ ಇರಬೇಕು ನಮ್ಮ ಕಮ್ಯುನಿಕೇಷನ್. ಇಲ್ಲ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದರೆ ಕಮ್ಯುನಿಕೇಷನ್ ವಿಲ್ ಲೂಸ್ ಇಟ್ಸ್ ವ್ಯಾಲ್ಯೂ. ಇದು ಒಂಥರ ಬೋರಿಂಗ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ ಅಥವಾ ಅಂಡರ್ಸ್ಟ್ಯಾಂಡ್ ಮಾಡಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಕಷ್ಟ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. ಸೊ ದಟ್ ಈಸ್ ಕೋಹರೆಂಟ್. ನೆಕ್ಸ್ಟ್ ಈಸ್ ಕನ್ಸೈಸ್. ಕನ್ಸೈಸ್ ಈಸ್ ಕರೆಕ್ಟ್ ಆರ್ ವೆರಿ ಸ್ಪೆಸಿಫಿಕ್. ಸುಮ್ಮನೆ ಏನೇನು ಹೇಳೋದಕ್ಕಿಂತ ಟು ದ ಪಾಯಿಂಟ್ ಹೇಳುವಂಥದ್ದು, ಅಂದರೆ ಎಷ್ಟು ಬೇಕೋ ಅಷ್ಟು ಮಾತ್ರ ಮಾತಾಡುವಂಥದ್ದು, ಅಥವಾ ಏನನ್ನು ನೀವು ಹೇಳಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಇಷ್ಟಪಡ್ತೀರೋ ಅದನ್ನು ಡೈರೆಕ್ಟಾಗಿ ಹೇಳುವಂಥದ್ದು, ವಿದೌಟ್ ಸುಮ್ಮನೆ ಅದು ಇದು ಅಂತೇಳಿ ರೌಂಡ್ ಹಾಕೋದಕ್ಕಿಂತ ಕಮ್ ಟು ದ ಪಾಯಿಂಟ್. ದಟ್ ಈಸ್ ವಾಟ್ ಐ ಮೆಂಟ್. ಕಂಪ್ಲೀಟ್. ಆಲ್ವೇಸ್ ವೆನೆವರ್ ಎಸ್ಪೆಷಲಿ ಇನ್ ದ ವರ್ಬಲ್ ಕಮ್ಯುನಿಕೇಷನ್ ಅಥವಾ ನೀವು ಮಾತಾಡಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ, ವೆನ್ ವಿ ಸೇ ಎ ಸೆಂಟೆನ್ಸ್, ಇಟ್ ಶುಡ್ ಬಿ ಕಂಪ್ಲೀಟೆಡ್. Okay, there should not be, so most of us do that actually. We start a sentence, and in between, the minute you understand that okay, the opponent or the person who is listening to you understood what you're trying to say, then you stop that sentence midway. ನೀವು ಅರ್ಧದಲ್ಲೇ ನಿಲ್ಲಿಸ್ಬಿಡ್ತೀರ. ಅರ್ಧ ನುಂಗೋದು ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತೀವಿ ನಾವು ಕ್ಲಾಸಲ್ಲಿ, ಯಾರು ಟೀಚರ್ಸ್ ಬೈದಿರ್ಬೋದು ಆ ರೀತಿ, ಅರ್ಧ ನುಂಗಬೇಡಿ ಅಂತೇಳಿ ಅಲ್ವಾ. ಸೊ ಆಲ್ವೇಸ್ ಸಿ ದ್ಯಾಟ್ ಯು ಕಮ್ಯುನಿಕೇಟ್ ದಟ್ ಸೆಂಟೆನ್ಸ್ clearly and completely. So that's very important, because if you don't complete, suppose all the audience may not take it in the right way, or ಎಲ್ಲರೂ ಕೂಡ ಅದೇ ಒಂದೇ ರೀತಿ ಅರ್ಥ ಆಗಬೇಕು ಅಂತಿಲ್ಲ, ಅವರು ಇನ್ನೊಂದು ವೇಯಲ್ಲಿ ಕೂಡ ಅರ್ಥ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಳ್ಬೋದು. ಆದ ಕಾರಣ ಆಲ್ವೇಸ್ ದ ಸೆಂಟೆನ್ಸ್ ವಾಟ್ ಯು ಕಮ್ಯುನಿಕೇಟ್ ಶುಡ್ ಬಿ ಕಂಪ್ಲೀಟ್. ದೆನ್ ಕರ್ಟಿಯಸ್ ಈಸ್ ಸಿ ಇಟ್ಸ್ ಲೈಕ್ ಬೀಯಿಂಗ್ ಎಂಪಥೆಟಿಕ್. ನೀವು ಮಾತಾಡಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ ಲಿಸನಿಂಗ್ ಮಾಡುವಾಗ ಕೂಡ ಅವ್ನಿಗೆ ಏನು ಅಂದ್ಕೊಳ್ತಾನೆ, ಅಥವಾ ಏನು ಅವನ ಮನಸ್ಸಿಗೆ ಏನು ಯಾವ ರೀತಿ ಅದು ಇಂಪ್ಯಾಕ್ಟ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ ಅದನ್ನು ಅರ್ಥ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಳ್ಳುವಂಥದ್ದು. ಸೊ ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಬೇಕಾದ ರೀತಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ಮಾತಾಡಬೇಕು. ಇದೊಂದು ಬಹಳಷ್ಟು ಮಂದಿಗೆ ಕಷ್ಟ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. ಅಂದರೆ ದೇ ಜಸ್ಟ್ ಟೆಲ್ ಟು ದ ಫೇಸ್ ವಿದೌಟ್ ಥಿಂಕಿಂಗ್ ವಾಟ್ ದ ಲಿಸನರ್ ವಿಲ್ ಫೀಲ್, ಆರ್ ವೆದರ್ ಹಿ ವಿಲ್ ಫೀಲ್ ಬ್ಯಾಡ್ ಆರ್ ನೋ. ಸೊ ಆಲ್ವೇಸ್ ಇಫ್ ಯು ವಾಂಟ್ ಟು ಬಿ ಅನ್ ಎಫೆಕ್ಟಿವ್ ಕಮ್ಯುನಿಕೇಟರ್, ಸಿ ದ್ಯಾಟ್ you try to understand the words you use, the vocabulary what you use in your communication. That should be something which the listener will not feel bad about. Okay, anta words annu use ಮಾಡುವಂಥದ್ದು. That is about being courteous. And the last one is concrete. That is like very whenever you say something, you should be 100% sure about it, and if possible you bring some reference. ಅಂದರೆ ನೀವು ಕಣ್ಣಾರೆ ನೋಡಿರಬೇಕು ಆ ಇನ್ಫಾರ್ಮೇಷನನ್ನು, ಅಥವಾ ಏನಾದರೂ ನಿಮಗೆ ರೈಟ್ ಸೋರ್ಸ್ ಇರಬೇಕು. ಸೊ ಸುಮ್ಮನೆ ಏನೋ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಕೇಳಿದಂಥ ವಿಷಯಗಳನ್ನು ಮಾಡಬಾರ್ದು. ಸೊ ದಟ್ ಇಸ್ ಬೀಯಿಂಗ್ ಕಾಂಕ್ರೀಟ್. ಸೊ ದೀಸ್ ಆರ್ ದ 7 C's of communication. So when we try to follow all these 7 C's of communication, our communication becomes excellent, and there will not be any scope for any misunderstanding. Okay, yeah. Next, moving on, effective business communication skills. So these are very important these days in most of the business communication. So in a business communication, we need to have all these. First one is collaboration. So it's like networking. Okay, collaboration is a skill, it's a method wherein if you are not good at something, okay, if you are so there is no shame in saying that I don't know that part, or I am not good in that part. So collaboration is where if you are good at something and you are not good at something, you need to find a person who is good at that thing, and you do a teamwork. Okay, so what happens is both who are excellent in two fields can work together, and as a team you can just do wonders. So that is the beauty of collaboration. Okay, but both should be given the right credit. What ಅಂದರೆ ಅವರು ಮಾಡಿದಂತಹ ವರ್ಕಿಗೆ ಏನು ವರ್ತ್ ಇದೆ ಅದನ್ನು ಅವರು ಕೊಡಬೇಕು. ಬಟ್ it is always better that if you are not good at something, ಅದರಲ್ಲಿ ನೀವು ಸುಮ್ಮನೆ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪೆರಿಮೆಂಟ್ ಮಾಡಿ instead of wasting time, it should always better that you collaborate with the person who is an expert of that field, so that excellent results you can expect. So that is very important in a business. Then public speaking. So say it's a skill, correct? Public speaking andre you speak to a large audience, wherein so in a business situation it can be any day you can expect such an occasion. You need to talk to a larger crowd. So when you talk to a large crowd, you should be very careful with your words, so that you don't hurt the feelings of the mass. ಅಂದರೆ ತುಂಬಾ ಜನ ಇರ್ತಾರೆ ಅಲ್ಲಿ, ಯಾವ ರೀತಿ ಆ ಕ್ರೌಡನ್ನು ಫೇಸ್ ಮಾಡಬೇಕು ಅನ್ನೋಂಥದ್ದು. That's again another effective tool in business communication. Then the next part is listening. So that is always that we should have this patience of when somebody is talking, we should at least wait till they complete, listen to them, then react. ನೋ ರಿಯಾಕ್ಷನ್ ಇನ್ ಬಿಟ್ವೀನ್. ಅಂದರೆ ಅವ್ರು ಮಾತಾಡ್ತಾ ಇರಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ ಅರ್ಧದಲ್ಲಿ ಕೆಲವರು ರಿಪ್ಲೈ ಮಾಡಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಶುರು ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ. ದಟ್ ಈಸ್ ನಾಟ್ ಸೊ ಗುಡ್ ಹ್ಯಾಬಿಟ್. ಸೊ ಲಿಸನಿಂಗ್ ಈಸ್ when somebody is talking, you wait until he finishes his conversation or that sentence. So give a pause after that, then you give a response. So that is how an effective communication happens. So then in written communication, again in a business situation, you will have to write a lot of emails or any other sort of letters. In that there should be some issues which are very careful about your grammars. Okay, the way of how you logically put the points, what to come first, what next, and the right salutations, etc. So that comes in written communication. Then non-verbal communication. So non-verbal communication is again important. It gives it comes along with verbal communication. When you verbal communication you do, along with that you add this to make communication very effective. But at the same time you should be very careful about the meanings of various non-verbal communication, because region wise or country wise they might have different meanings. So that part we should be keeping in mind. But otherwise these are some everyday issues in a business situation that we must follow and practice. So 3 ways to improve your communication skills. So to become a great conversationalist, take care of the following 3 things. ನೀವು ಒಂದು ಉತ್ತಮ ಮಾತುಗಾರ ಆಗಬೇಕು, ಅಥವಾ ಒಂದು ಒಳ್ಳೆಯ ಒಂದು ಒರೇಟರ್ ಅಂತ ಕರೀತಾರೆ ಆಗಬೇಕಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ, ದೀಸ್ ಥಿಂಗ್ಸ್ ಯು ಮಸ್ಟ್ ಹ್ಯಾವ್ ಇನ್ ಯುವರ್ ಕಮ್ಯುನಿಕೇಷನ್ಸ್. ಸೊ ಫಸ್ಟ್ ಒನ್ ಈಸ್ ಪಾಸ್. ಅಂದರೆ ಎಲ್ಲ ವಿಷಯಗಳನ್ನು ಒಂದೇ ದಮ್ಮಲ್ಲಿ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತಾರೆ. ಎಟ್ ಒನ್ ಗೋ ಯು ಫಿನಿಶ್ ಎವ್ರಿಥಿಂಗ್. ಸೊ ವಾಟ್ ಹ್ಯಾಪನ್ಸ್ ಈಸ್, ಫಾರ್ ಅ ಲಿಸನರ್ ಅದನ್ನು ಅರ್ಥ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಳ್ಳುವಂಥ ಒಂದು ಗ್ಯಾಪ್ ಸಿಗೋದೇ ಇಲ್ಲ. ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ಈವನ್ ಅಥವಾ ಇನ್ನೊಬ್ಬರು ಮಾತಾಡ್ತಾರೆ, ಇಮಿಡಿಯೇಟಾಗಿ ಯು ಸ್ಟಾರ್ಟ್ ಗಿವಿಂಗ್ ರೆಸ್ಪಾನ್ಸ್. ಸೊ ದಟ್ ಅಂಡರ್ಸ್ಟ್ಯಾಂಡಿಂಗ್ಗೆ ಒಂದು ಟೈಮ್ ಸಿಗದೇ ಇರುವಂಥದ್ದು. ಸೊ ಅದನ್ನು ಅವಾಯ್ಡ್ ಮಾಡಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಎ ಪಾಸ್ ಈಸ್ ಆಲ್ವೇಸ್ ನೆಸೆಸರಿ. ಪಾಸ್ ಬಿಫೋರ್ ರಿಪ್ಲೈಯಿಂಗ್ 3 to 5 seconds ಆಫ್ಟರ್ ಪರ್ಸನ್ ಹ್ಯಾಸ್ ಸ್ಟಾಪ್ ಟಾಕಿಂಗ್. ಒಬ್ಬರು ನಿಮ್ಮ ಹತ್ರ ಏನೋ ಮಾತಾಡ್ತಾರೆ, ಗಿವ್ ಅ ಪಾಸ್ ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ talk ಅಥವಾ start your communication, start your conversation after at least 3 to 5 seconds gap or pause, not interfering in the other person's speech. ಅವ್ರು ಮಾತಾಡ್ತಾ ಇರಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ we should not interfere and speak, and showing the other person that you have listened to the other person. So it is very important when, if you are talking to someone and if they are not interested in your speech, that will be visible in their face. ಕರೆಕ್ಟ್, ನಿಮಗೆ ಅರ್ಥ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ ಅದು. ಅವರ ಫೇಶಿಯಲ್ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪ್ರೆಷನ್ ಇರ್ಬೋದು, ಅಥವಾ ಅವರು ಆಚೀಚೆ ನೋಡೋದಿರ್ಬೋದು. ಸೊ ದಟ್ ಆ್ಯಕ್ಚುಲಿ ಇರಿಟೇಟ್ಸ್ ದಿ ಸ್ಪೀಕರ್. ಸೊ if you are in important communication, you must always make comfortable to the speaker that yes, you are listening to them. So one way to do that is nod your head. Many students do that. They nod their head, yes, they understood. But I don't really know that whether if they are really listening or they are simply nodding. So at least it is good to be in the part of listener that they must make the speaker comfortable by letting them know that they are listening to them. Okay, then question for clarification. um, I think most of these classes or sessions, after the sessions, they might ask you or tell you that if any questions are there, you can ask. So most of us feel that asking a question will be not that great, or not. It is maybe we might feel ashamed of it because I did not listen to the class or something like that. No, it is absolutely no. You can definitely ask anything which is not clear to you. Okay, never assume things that you have understood all. There may be, it is not actually possible that everything a person speaks cent per cent you understand everything. I think it is highly impossible. So always have this ability and habit of asking questions if you don't understand anything. Okay, it is not something wrong. Okay. And follow up with other open-ended questions. So like anything, it can be you may not know what to ask, then somebody asks the questions. So from that question, one more question might trigger to you, so you can ask that. So definitely asking question is never a wrong thing to do in a communication. You can always ask when something is not clear to you. Okay, but most of us do that, even though ನಮ್ಗೆ ಅರ್ಥ ಆಗಿಲ್ಲ ಕೂಡ ಏನು ಮತ್ತೆ ನೋಡು ಅಂತೇಳಿ ಬಿಟ್ಬಿಡ್ತೀವಿ, and it is a bad sign in communication. Okay, then next one is paraphrase the speaker's point, to put in the words what you have understood and get it corrected if required. Point wise ಅದಲ್ಲಿ ನೋಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಳ್ಬೋದು. And relax and happy environment because you have understood. Once one good habit is always in most of the important communications to have a paper and pen that shows that you have come prepared to listen. Okay, and whenever you understand something, or when you listen something which is important, you feel, you can just make a note of it. Okay, so that once, even though it can be a 1 hour lecture, 1 hour session, if you write down these points step wise or paragraph wise, what will happen is just looking at that page, you will get a glimpse of that 1 hour talk, what we have discussed in 1 hour. So otherwise we might forget everything. So these are some ways to improve your communication skills. So now what stops you from communicating effectively? There are some reasons for ineffective communication. So let's see some of these you can relate, I believe. Say first one is stress and out of control emotion. So most of us, what we do is we are tensed about something else which is not at all related to this communication. So we are stressed, maybe something which happened in our family at home, or maybe with our financial condition, or whatever, money related issues, anything. So we are stressed, and so that anger, that sadness, whatever it may be, that will be reflected in your communication. That is, without reason you get angry, and you respond harshly to some person who is not at all a reason for your stress. So that happens. So most of us need to practice this. Our emotions should not come in way of our communication which is not related to that. I mean, ಅಂದರೆ ಈಗ ಬೇರೆ ಯಾವುದೋ ಒಂದು ರೀಸನ್ನಿಂದ ನಾನು ಟೆನ್ಷನಲ್ಲಿದ್ದೀನಿ, ನಾನು ಕಾಲೇಜ್ ಬರ್ತೀನಿ, ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ವೆನೆವರ್ ಐ ಸ್ಪೀಕ್ ಟು ಸ್ಟೂಡೆಂಟ್, or maybe for silly reasons I might shout at them. So that is definitely not a good communication. Okay, then lack of focus. So if I am talking about something, if I am talking to somebody, so having the focus on what I am trying to tell is very important. If my focus is shifted from the main discussion point, then it becomes ineffective. I mean, people, the listeners might lose interest on that. Then inconsistent body language. Uh, See, in non-verbal communication part, we have seen it. How important is this non-verbal communication or body language, the way you look, the way you present yourself in the communication. So, if the things you say and your body language does not match, they don't go along, very well. That becomes, the communication becomes failure. People might lose interest in your talking, or what you are trying to say. And even negative body language, for that matter, inconsistent or negative body language. Maybe you're telling something which is very nice, but your body language is not so interesting to see, so the communication might fail. So so how to communicate effectively? Um so these are some skills which might help us to improve our communication skills. So become an engaged listener. So first and foremost, always try to have this habit of listening. That's very important. Okay. Become an engaged listener. ಇನ್ನೊಬ್ರು ಮಾತಾಡಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ ಯಾವತ್ತೂ ಕೂಡ ಇನ್ ಬಿಟ್ವೀನ್ ಮಾತಾಡೋದು ಬೇಡ. ಟ್ರೈ ಟು ಲಿಸನ್ ಟು ದೆಮ್, ಬಿಕಾಸ್ ಯು ಶುಡ್ ಆಲ್ವೇಸ್ ಹ್ಯಾವ್ ಅನ್ ಆ್ಯಟಿಟ್ಯೂಡ್ ದಟ್ every person you meet will know something which you don't know. So that is the right attitude about listening. So give respect to them. Okay, listen to them. Now after listening, if you do not require that, you can just leave it, but otherwise you can take it as an information. Okay, so always have this attitude of every person you meet knows something better than you, or maybe more than you, because it might be their area of interest. They might have done some work on that. So please listen to them. So become an engaged listener. Pay attention to the non-verbal signs. So because as we have seen in communication, non-verbal signs are also very important along with the verbal communication. So look at them also, because they might give you some meaning. So they might make it easy for you to understand things. And keep stress in check. So it depends, I mean, what kind of job environment or family environment you live in. So always this work life balance we call, so your family life and your workplace, the stress, so it cannot mix up. And if you mix everything, your both work and life, family life, both will be miserable. So always try to have a balance, that don't carry the stress from one place to another. So finish it off there and come back. So that it's not so easy, we need to practice it. So that is one thing, so that your stress may not affect our communication. uh, and 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 uh, and, and nowadays that is the biggest challenge, actually, at least post COVID. There may be financial issues and economic conditions of the family, so we are really stressed, and that will be visible in our communication. That is quite problem for effective communication. So with this we'll stop. Next part we'll continue in the next class. Thank you so much.